What's going on, everybody? It's Dan here again with another Moonshine Talkin', and on this one, I want to talk about some glam and hair metal bands. I know, there's people that are too true with a V and cult with a K and a V to say they like hair metal and glam metal stuff, but I enjoy it. It was one of my first loves. It's one of the things that got me into heavy metal and then into extreme metal. It was kind of my gateway, growing up as a kid. As I mentioned in the previous video, that this is the stuff that my older sibling and my oldest sister and her circle of friends, my cousin, a bunch of people that were a little bit older than me that I looked up to. This was the stuff they grew up on. So it was the stuff that, as far as hard rock and heavy metal, that it got me into, that's what got me into this sort of music. It was, again, I'm being redundant, but it was my gateway. It was the stuff that they listened to. So that's what I was exposed to first. It's what I first fell in love with. And I love it to this day, and I am unapologetic about it. I'm not ashamed to say it. I know there's some people, they start, their buttholes start puckering whenever you mention glam and hairband stuff, but I am not one of those people. I have been called every awful name in the book that you could possibly think of. A wimp or a poser is not going to register on my list of things that you could call me that's even going to generate a reaction in the slightest bit for me. So I don't worry about that sort of thing. So anyhow, that all being said, that preamble being laid out there, let's get into it. So the idea here, the concept of the video is that I'm going to mention stuff, five essentials, and then five things that I think are underrated that people could probably, if you don't already have it in your collection, I'd recommend picking it up if you're into this sort of thing. And if you're not familiar with some of this stuff, I would recommend checking it out as well. But there's a ton of stuff. This is by no means a comprehensive list. There's obviously a ton of stuff that I'm leaving out here, which if you're a fan of this style, you're gonna know that that is by no means a comprehensive list. And there's a lot of big name acts that I've left off the list. But there's more stuff that's like kind of like special to me, and some of which has a story to it, which I'll tell as time goes on while I'm doing this. But first of all, in no order of importance, we'll start with the essentials. I would have to say Shout at the Devil by Motley Crue is definitely an essential hard rock hairband glam metal album. This copy I found for $2 at the local record store Steelworker. And I said, oh man, I got to get that. If nothing else, I have it on CD. I don't have it on vinyl. I'm not one of these people that has to have a copy of every format, and I'm not that big of a collector monkey or anything like that. So it wasn't super essential to do that, but I do have it on CD. But I just thought it was cool to have this. And yeah, this is just a great album. I mean, Looks to Kill, cover Helter Skelter, Knock 'em Dead Kid, friggin', the title track, Too Young to Fall in Love. This whole thing from top to bottom is fantastic for this style of music, this genre. It's one of their heavier ones, and then they started going a little too commercial, but still, I would say up until I would say Theater of Pain's a little on the light side. Uh, I think they kind of came back on track with Dr. Feelgood, but overall, I like Motley Crue. Uh, not so. I'm not really familiar with the John Corabi era or the later stuff. I heard their last album was dog shit, but I haven't heard any of that. But I can't imagine it's any good because there was a certain steep decline with Motley Crue. Me and my boys, my tag partner, his at the time current tag partner, and a bunch of other guys, we saw them on their final tour, and my buddy Mike, he just spent a king's ransom on paying for tickets to go see them. It was them. It was Alice Cooper Band. They had Black Star Riders, which was it was Ricky Hawkins. I want to say he was doing stuff with Thin Lizzy, and a couple other guys. I can't remember all the guys in it, and it was a good show, but it was way too expensive. You could tell they were using backing tracks and lip syncing and all sorts of smoke and mirrors. A couple of pretty dancing girls that were singing, but you could tell they obviously were lip syncing and didn't know what the hell was going on outside of that. Uh, a gimmicky drum solo by Tommy Lee. But at the end of the day, it was a halfway decent show, and we got to meet Nico McBrain out in the crowd and got to take a picture with him, which I'll try to pull that up and show it here. So if you see it, then you saw that I did it. But anyhow, next up, Stay Hungry by Twisted Sister. Uh, Dee Snider's kind of a douche. You know, the more I've heard him talk, the less I like him. He's one. It's just I don't know. Not to get all political or anything, but I just find it weird that a guy who had his band targeted by Tipper Gore and the PMRC would then go on to vote for Al Gore, her husband, in a presidential election, and then his answer for that is because he's of a certain heritage and religious background from New York. So why wouldn't he vote for a Democrat? Which is just it's bizarre to me. But you know, it is what it is. And then you hear him talk. He's kind of like he's of a very strident, very this very hardline political philosophy that I just don't agree with. You know, and it's just and he just more and more comes off like a douche. I appreciate him going up in front of the house and trying to fly the flag of metal, but over time he's just turned into a kind of a douche. But that said, um, this album's great. Just a fantastic album. Go to hell. I mean, everything other than We're Not Gonna Take It is probably excellent on this thing. You know, the title track, Stay Hungry, The Price, Burn in Hell, Captain Howdy, you know, The Beast, SMF. The whole thing is fantastic. You know, probably honestly the two singles, I Want to Rock and We're Not Gonna Take It, they're probably the lamest ones on the album. But overall, a fantastic album. Always loved the video as a kid growing up with Niedermeyer in the video. I forget the guy's name, but Niedermeyer from Animal House. But just really good stuff. Definitely to me essential. Next up, you could take either one of these, but either one of the first two Wasps. I would say in this respect, Last Command. I should probably eventually get single editions of each of these albums, but I just got a double disc when I picked it up at the record store one day. And yeah, this is a fantastic one. Blind in Texas is a great song. The Last Command is great. Just the whole thing is killer. I love the part in Blind in Texas where Black he's doing the speaking where he's talking to the bartender and the bartender tells him to go home and he's like go home and he's like home's in California. How am I supposed to get on a horse and ride all the way to LA? And he's like, don't fall off. Just great stuff. But anyhow, um, so next up, this one is killer, just killer stuff. Slave to the Grind by Skid Row. This one is for hair metal and glam metal. This is probably about as heavy as it gets. I mean, just a great album. Quicksand Jesus is great. Monkey Business, just a classic hair metal song. Psycho Love, Get the Fuck Out. The whole thing is just a great album and a lot heavier than Mud Kicker's another good one. It has a nice gritty guitar riff on it. But yeah, very good. Definitely it was a step up from their self-titled, and then they pretty much fell off the rails at that point and couldn't get along. And then we pretty much got the faux Skid Row from then on, and Sebastian Bach doing whatever he does. He actually put an album last year, and I never picked it up. I meant to do it, but I never picked it up and to listen to it, see how it sounded. I guess eventually I'll get it, but it just it went from being something I was looking forward to getting and anticipating to didn't become a priority to now it's like, I guess I'll get it eventually. But yeah, that one, as far as Slave to the Grind, that one I think is one of the best hard rock hair band albums of all time. And definitely, if you don't own it, it's something I would get. And then finally, Pyromania by Def Leppard. This is just a monster of an album. You know, practically everything on here is a hit. Foolin', Photograph, Rock of Ages, Rock Till You Drop, Too Late for Love. the whole thing is good. Just a fantastic album and just killer band. We actually, again, my buddy Mike and a couple of us, we got to see Def Leppard on their final tour. It was Def Leppard, Styx, and Tesla. And unfortunately, it rained when Tesla was playing, and it was thundering and lightning out pretty bad. So they didn't get to play, so we didn't get to see them, which sucked ass. And I kind of wish that they would have like split the difference and said, all right, well, why don't we give Styx half of that time and Tesla half of that time and send everyone home happy? But that's not how things worked out. Tesla just didn't play that night, and Styx, who I could have cared less about, they ended up playing, and I could have gone without seeing them. But seeing Tommy Shaw was pretty cool because I enjoy his work. He's a fantastic player and musician, so it was cool seeing him. But other than that, I could have taken or left Sticks. And Def Leppard was great. I have pictures and video of that show, and yeah, it was a good time. It was one of the in that era of my life, it was one of the last times that I really had fun with my wrestling crew of people. And then, some stuff happened and we all kind of fell out, uh, stopped talking and that sort of thing. But that's neither here nor there. All right, so that's five what I consider essential ones. Now let's talk five underrated ones. First up, and again, in no order of importance, I would say Wake Me When It's Over by Faster Pussycat. This is a fantastic, sleazy LA glam metal sunset strip thing. Uh, Tame Me Down. He's unfortunately he's been in the news because his girlfriend, I guess she killed herself at on a cruise ship, and I saw Ricky Rackman was talking about it, and she did it in front of him, which is rough, So my heart's out to him. But that said, on such a horrific note, yeah, this is one of these things where I can always remember going to wrestling meets and wrestling tournaments, and I would listen to it on my Walkman on the way there, and it always would just kind of it would pump me up at the time, and stuff like Pulling Weeds and Wake Me When It's Over. Poison Ivy's a really good song. Probably the best one on here is Slip of the Tongue. That's a really good song. We actually, at my job, we do a thing now called Hair Metal Monday because my staff asked me to do that. They requested that I just started playing I played like three or four hair metal songs in a row, and then I mentioned something about it to them, and they're like, "Oh, Dan, can we can can we just do that? Can you just play hair metal songs all night?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, you're gonna test my memory, but yeah, we can do that." So that's so we ended up doing hair metal Monday, and they're exhausting my knowledge of hair metal and glam rock and stuff like that. But that was one of the first ones I played for them, and they loved it just because it's slip of the tongue. I'm in deep shit, so bad off I can taste it. But yeah, I love this growing up, and I still do to this day, if you can't tell. But that's a really good one. Next one, I would almost consider this essential, but definitely underrated. Wicked Sensation by Lynch Mob. This is just a fantastic album. George Lynch, formerly of Dokken, this was his band. Just a great band. Ani Logan on vocals, Anthony Esposito on bass, Mick Brown on drums. Just a killer group that he had assembled for this one. The opening track, Wicked Sensation's great. No Bed of Roses is good. And what else? Hell Child is really good. Yeah, All I Want. That's a fantastic song. But yeah, really good stuff. And then next up, this is in my Lucy pile that I've talked about in the past, but so I'm not going to pull the disc out, but you can see Jackal self-titled. This one was just a great sleazy southern rock hair band album. I Stand Alone's really good. Of course, the Lumberjack. That's such a hokey song, but it's a good time. Down on Me is a really good one. I always think of that now because back in ECW, Extreme Championship Wrestling, towards the tail end of its run, there was a guy there called Easy Money, and he not only was he a wrestler, but he also was a gear maker. So he would make his own gear. He would make a bunch of gear for all the boys, and some of the stuff that he would wear like these crazy trunk outfits, but then he'd have these weird like garter belt gimmicks going down the side, and he'd have these like stripper tearaway pants that he'd wear before he'd unveil these things in the ring. But that notwithstanding, that kind of dubious outfit notwithstanding, he was a halfway decent wrestler, somewhat charismatic, and that was his ring music. So me and my buddies, we would always laugh whenever we hear this song because that's all we would think of from that point on. And one of my coworkers said to me that wrestling is like, what did they say? They said wrestling is straight drag, which I don't know if I necessarily agree with that summation of pro wrestling. But, nonetheless, I don't get offended by stuff like that. It was kind of funny, but at the same time, I don't necessarily agree with that analysis of what pro wrestling is. I never looked at it that way. Anything that I dressed in, other than probably my first gimmick, I never looked at anything as kind of like of dubious nature. But moving on, the Bullet Boys. This is another fantastic LA sleazy hard rock band. Hard as a Rock is a great song. For the Love of Money, their cover For the Love of Money. Smooth Up in You, that was their big hit, one of their big hits. Bullet Boys were the very first band I ever saw live. The first show my parents would ever allow me to go to, my older sister took me to. It was Poison, Slaughter, not the Canadian Slaughter, but the Up All Night Slaughter, and the Bullet Boys. And the Bullet Boys opened up the show. They were fairly popular at the time, and it was a great time. I bought one of their shirts. I had it for years. Eventually, it got holes all in it, worn out, that sort of thing. But I had it forever, and so this band has kind of a special place in my heart because it is kind of the start of when I first started going to shows and getting to go see concerts and that sort of thing. So it always stuck out to me. And again, I have an unapologetic love of hard rock and hairband stuff. So if you're like, oh, what a pussy, whatever. I don't give a crap about all that. But yeah, so the Bullet Boys, very good stuff, just very sleazy. Actually, fun story about that is a girl who used to work with me. Her name was Chelsea, and she would hate it whenever we played Hard as a Rock. She heard it once and she could not stand the song. It's hard as a rock, and baby, hard as a rock. And oh my God, that's the sleaziest song in the world. Which, of course, me and my one buddy Paul, who worked there at the time, of course, that egged us on. We weren't not gonna play the song now. So it always makes me laugh. I always think of her whenever I play it, and yeah, which I know kind of sound. I'm sure she'd love to hear that. Whenever I, whenever I think of being hard as a rock, I'm thinking of Chelsea. But she's cool. She'd appreciate that joke. But anyhow, finally, I'm gonna say Blue Murder's self-titled. This is a monster of an album. This John Sykes from Whitesnake, from Thin Lizzy, he had this project. He was doing this when he was putting out the 1987 Whitesnake album. He was writing stuff for this at the same time, and as some of you are aware of, he wrote pretty much all of the hits for Whitesnake. I mean, John Sykes, rest in peace. He was a talented, talented motherfucker. He was just a monster songwriter, amazing musician, fantastic vocalist, and he assembled a great band with this. He had Tony Franklin to the left there on bass, Carmine Appice on drums. John Sykes did all the guitars and vocals, and this is just a killer, just a stellar, stellar hard rock album. Probably Ptolemy and Valley of the Kings are the best songs on this album. Valley of the Kings is an amazing song. Ptolemy is, I just love the use of pinch harmonics in it the whole time. It's just a great riff, and he was just fantastic. Billy is great. Jelly Roll's a good song. Actually, I saw an alternate version they did unplugged on the Yahoo Serious show, and there's a video on YouTube that you can check out, and that's really good. And you can just see how talented everybody in the band is. I'd put Tony Franklin. He came from a band called The Firm, which is not really my style of music, but that's where he came from. And Carmine Appice from Vanilla Fudge and a ton Cactus and a ton of other bands. They're all just fantastic musicians. A lot of people might know Carmine Appice. He was in Black Roses. He played the drummer in that. And yeah, just a killer album. If you're not really familiar with it, if you're not familiar with Blue Murder, go check it out. I mean, John Sykes he was a sensational uh, musician, songwriter, just a talent all around. It's a shame that he was kind of reclusive in his later years until he died. It would have been nice to see them get together, at least maybe for a tour or maybe a few one-off shows, maybe even do some new music. But that's not how things worked out. He had cancer and he pretty much kept to himself to the day he died, which is in a lot of ways commendable. But as a fan, I would have loved to have heard more from them, heard a bit more of a matured is the wrong word, but just hear them as as time went on, a more matured sound when with the benefit of being an armchair quarterback and doing the coulda shoulda woulda thing, what you would have come up with, and then once you finally did get the chance, how it would have worked out. But anyhow, that's that's my list again. In no ways comprehensive, but definitely if this is the sort of thing that you're into or that you're looking to get into, this is what I would recommend. And as you could probably tell, I am a little passionate about this. I do enjoy this stuff. I've been listening to it for a long time. And I hope you enjoyed hearing about some of the hairband stuff that I like. It's not black metal, it's not death metal, it's not even sludge stoner doom stuff, but it is definitely a genre that I really enjoy. And I enjoy sharing the stuff and sharing stories and stuff like that with people. So I hope you enjoyed it just the same. So anyhow, this is Dan from Moonshine Talking. Everybody, take it easy. Have a good one. As always, stay sick, stay heavy, stay brutal. Always tuck your chin upon impact. Don't forget to breathe. Everyone have a good one. It's 2025. You can leave the Aqua net and the mascara at home. All right, everyone have a good one. Take it easy. Later.